Now on BBC Radio 4, 200 years ago, the Luddite uprisings began in the Midlands and swept through into Yorkshire and Lancashire. For a few short months, the country teetered on the edge of rebellion. In The Luddite Lament, the award-winning singer and writer John Tams looks at the story of the Luddites through the prism of the songs they left behind.
He may censure great Lud's disrespect for the laws, who ne'er for a moment reflects that foul imposition alone was the cause which produced these unhappy effects.
Thorpe, William, 23, hanged.
Brooke, Thomas, 32, hanged.
Dean, Jonathan, 28, hanged.
Mellor, George, 22, hanged.
Milne, Charles, 22, transported.
Walker, John.
I like the songs that hold working class history together. They're closer to the people and the reality of what the working life was like, and the struggles and the turmoil and the battles that were fought by working class men and women. That's what attracted me to this programme.
Okay, it's a box, part of our Treasury Solicitor collection. So we're looking on the legal side of things and state prosecutions. Right, so essentially then we've got the two bundles that relate to the Luddites. My name's Paul Carter. I work at the National Archives at Kew, and I'm the Principal Record Specialist for Modern Domestic Records. We refer to people who don't want to use the latest applications, who don't want to have a mobile phone, who don't want to, use the new technologies, if you like. And we say, they're a Luddite. And that's not what a Luddite was. The people who lived through this period, and I'll say to you now, it's a fascinating period to study, but an awful one to live through. I come from the West Riding. It's a lovely place. Love to get back up when I can. And I enjoy reading about and trying to understand what life would have been like there at that time. But there's no way ever that I would want to have lived there in the first couple of decades of the 19th century.
We've gone today to the Tolson Museum in Huddersfield, and we're going to meet Dr. John Hargreaves, a local historian.
Bread prices in 1812 reached the highest level of any year in the 19th century or any previous year in the 18th century. This was a year in which Britain was engaged in a protracted war with revolutionary and Napoleonic France. And the war involved Napoleon's economic blockade, and normal commercial relationships were severely disrupted. And so there was a lot of pressure on manufacturers to consider ways of cutting their costs.
Machine breaking had been going on well before 1811, but it was in the spring of that year that it reached new levels. The word Luddism was first used in a newspaper report a few months later. Letters and songs appeared, signed by, or paying tribute to, General Ludd.
The guilty may fear, but no vengeance he aims at the honest man's life or estate. His wrath is entirely confined to white frames, and to those that old prices abate. My name's Roy Palmer, and for many years I've been preoccupied with traditional music and street balladry. The song really sets out the Luddite case. They are looking to defend their standards of workmanship and, of course, to defend their jobs. Innovation and so forth, one has to accept, but too often when innovation comes, the conclusion is, well, sorry you lot, too bad, we've got a better way of doing it, so goodbye, fend for yourselves.
To some degree, you'd got people pushed right to the edge. The new economy, the kind of unregulated industrial capitalism of that very early period, had no protections built in for the ordinary working person. There had been legislation. There'd been legislation around the introduction of gig mills. There'd been legislation about the number of looms that a master should control. There'd been legislation about apprenticeships and the control of numbers going into the trade. And all of those were in place, and the Luddites knew about them, and they appealed to Parliament in regard to them, but all to no avail. So it wasn't that they hadn't tried these constitutional petitioning, very peaceful ways. It was that they had no purchase. Machines per se is not the issue.
Was there someone called Ned Ludd?
Yes and no. It is possible that Ned Ludd existed, and there are stories dating from the 1760s and 70s of a lad called Ned Ludd or Ned Ludlam. He was apprenticed to a stockinger, in other words, a framework knitter, and he was thrashed by this man for allegedly being idle, or alternatively he was regarded as stupid and he flew into rages and smashed up machinery. And so when Luddite activity as we now know it started, the word Luddite was coined, and this was 1811. There's no record of that word before 1811.
Is it a coincidence that it rhymes with Robin Hood?
It is possible that the song General Ludd's Triumph specifically says we've had enough of Robin Hood, now we want General Ludd.
Yeah. And does it go, chant no more your bold rhymes about bold Robin Hood, his feat I would little admire. I will sing you the praises of General Ludd, the hero of Nottinghamshire.
That's very much it.
Well, I'm having a drink at the Shears Inn. It's a very celebrated Yorkshire pub, 8 miles south of Bradford. Iconic in many ways in terms of working class history, because this is where the Luddites met, in a little room upstairs above my head, where I'm sat here at this bar. Nearly 200 years ago, another man sat here, had a drink, and sang a song. His name was John Walker, and the song was called The Cropper Lads. I'll give it a go. Come, cropper lads of high renown, who like to drink strong ale that's brown. What is a cropper?
A cropper was involved in the finishing process of the manufacture of woolen cloth.
The cropper lads are we, and gallant lads we be. With lusty stroke, the sheer frames broke. The cropper lads are we.
The cropper song finishes with the verse about Great Enoch still shall lead the van. And Great Enoch was a big hammer with which they were on their way to smash up the shear frames.
Great Enoch still shall lead the van. Stop him who dare, stop him who can. Must be 10 or 12 pounds in weight.
I would say at least that, yes.
Yeah, if you swing that, it's going to make a hell of a mess, isn't it?
Yes, it was made at the foundry of Enoch and James Taylor in Marsden. Enoch was a very interesting figure. He not only manufactured the hammers that were used to destroy the machines, but he also manufactured the machines themselves. And so
shrewd businessman.
Shrewd businessman. So the war cry was, Enoch hath made 'em, Enoch shall break 'em.
As you can hear, we're at the confluence of some major roads now. This is Dumb Steeple, D-U-M-B, Steeple. It's a stone-built monolith, a kind of needle, which has shifted from where it was when, at the dead of night, many, many men, Luddites, gathered here to move forward to make their attack on Rawfall's Mill. And with Dr. John Hargreaves, how many men would there have been here that night, John?
We're not sure of the exact numbers. They'd hoped to have, I think, about 150 leaving from this spot. There was certainly over 100. And they would have gathered, perhaps some of them early in the evening at the Shears Inn at Liversedge, and then have moved down here for a midnight rendezvous. This was April 11th, 1812, and it was to launch what would have been their largest planned attack to date, an attack on William Cartwright's Rawfall's Mill.
We're en route from their meeting place at Dumsteeple and the journey they made in April 1812. Why particularly did they choose that mill?
William Cartwright, who owned the mill, was one of the manufacturers who was absolutely determined